They called it the Football War, a four-day war triggered by World Cup qualifying football matches between El Salvador and Honduras in July 1969. But this isn't a story about sports. It's a story of migrant waves, stolen land, nationalist fury, and how a ball kicked into a goal became a symbolic match point for war. This story begins with land and overpopulation. By 1969, El Salvador was bursting at the seams. Hundreds of thousands of Salvadorans had migrated into Honduras, seeking land or work. Estimates range from 300,000 to 350,000 Salvadorans living in Honduras, roughly 10 to 20% of its population. Honduras, with its own entrenched landowning elite and companies like United Fruit dominating agricultural holdings, saw this surge as a threat. In response, President Oswaldo López Arellano pressed ahead with land reforms in 1969 that seized property from Salvadoran settlers and deported many. This sparked growing resentment and violence. In early 1969, diplomatic tensions rose. By June, the World Cup qualifiers came and added fuel to the fire. On June 8th, the first match in Tegucigalpa ended in Honduran victory, 1-0, hailed by fans with wild celebrations and violence in the stands. A week later, in San Salvador on June 15th, the reverse happened. El Salvador won 3-0. Fans lit fireworks around the Honduran team's hotel, forcing players to flee. With both teams tied, a decider was held at Mexico City's Azteca Stadium on June 27th. After 2-2 in extra time, El Salvador scored the 3-2 winner, securing its first World Cup berth. This goal was more than a goal. As one player put it, "When I scored, I was sure we would win." Minutes later, El Salvador severed diplomatic ties with Honduras. What followed was swift and brutal. On July 14th, El Salvador launched air raids and a ground invasion of Honduras. It was raw retaliation, fueled by months of ethnic tension. This conflict didn't last, not by much. A ceasefire was negotiated by the OAS on July 18th, coming into effect by July 20th. Still, in just 4 days, thousands of lives were lost, and tens of thousands left homeless. Estimates vary. Around 2,000 to 6,000 people died. Honduran civilians were heavily impacted, and Salvadoran casualties were also widespread. Up to 130,000 Salvadoran immigrants were expelled or fled back to an overpopulated El Salvador, destabilizing the already fragile nation. Trade collapsed, borders closed, and the Central American common market faltered. The war marked the beginning of deeper instability across the region. The veteran forces of El Salvador, buoyed by this victory, found their role in society strengthened. Many displaced peasants, politicized and organized in Honduras, flowed into factions like the FMLN. Seeds of the Salvadoran Civil War sprouted. Border disputes lingered. Peace only came decades later. Honduras and El Salvador officially settled on borders in the late 1980s and early 1990s. So while football is the headline, it was deep structural injustice, economic inequality, and nationalistic politics that lit the fuse. Football was just the match. If this glimpse into history fired your curiosity, there's more. Subscribe to Untold History in 5. Where we unpack the moments history textbooks skim right over. From symbolic sparks to sweeping conflicts, we bring you the stories where fact is often stranger than fiction. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Especially if your favorite team scored the goal that almost started a war. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.